Hello and welcome to Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and joining me on the show today is Damon Wyckoff. He is the Director of Operations for the Calaveras County Water District. Damon, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Joel.
Great to have you on the show. So before we get into all your responsibilities directing the operations of CCWD, I wanted to go back a little bit to where you grew up and get a little bit of your back life story. So where did it all begin for you, Damon?
Well, I moved to Amador County. I think I was 3. It was late 70s. And I grew up in Jackson, and I went to Argonaut High School. My wife and I were actually high school sweethearts. She went to Amador. And then I went off to college, went to Sac State to study biology. And I was a couple years at Sac, about 3 years in, I was in actually a band where we played music around Sacramento, and the band took off, and I thought I was going to become a rock star. So I quit college, and for about the next approximately 10 or 11 years, I just toured and played music, and we put out records. We were called Forever Gold Rush, and it was all kids from the foothills. So after I decided I really needed a dental plan, and my wife and I reconnected, we decided, living in the foothills is the way to go, and it's a great place to raise kids. So we moved back to Amador County in the early 2000s. At that point in time, it was time for me to go back to school and finish my biology degree. And I happened to be working at an environmental lab called Sierra Foothill Laboratory, which folks in the region will remember was a great environmental lab for having your wells tested and all the water and wastewater utilities in the region sent their samples there. And I would do aquatic toxicity testing at the lab, and I would also drive around and pick up laboratory samples. And so I was talking to my boss, who was a great mentor to me. His name was Tony Nurse, about going back to school and finishing my degree, and he brought up the point that you could become certified in water treatment and distribution in fairly short order through correspondence courses in the state with and become certified and make approximately the same money as a biologist. So I went that route. So 2 months after I received my T2 and D2 certifications, I actually got a job at CCWD as a water treatment plant operator for the Jenny Lind water treatment plant, Valley Springs area. Mm-hmm. I was there for about 11 months, and then I took an opportunity over at the Amador Water Agency and became a treatment plant operator there, and was at the water agency for about 13 years, where I worked my way up through the ranks, and ultimately became the operations manager for the water agency, which my responsibilities are similar to that as the director of operations at CCWD. I was responsible for water and wastewater treatment, distribution and collections, and also for the engineering department and the ancillary or service-oriented departments such as electrical and construction.
Wow, so you definitely had a lot of interesting life experiences leading up to where you are now. Are you still playing any music at all?
Periodically, I do play. Provisions is a great place in Cedar Creek that I've played. Every once in a while, we'll get together and play down in Sacramento at Harlow's or Old Ironsides. It's always a good time. But, for the most part, I have kids that are getting into. My son will be in high school next year. My daughter's going to be in junior high, so it's quite the transition of work and family.
Yeah. So what about the foothills were appealing to you when you decided, okay, I'm going to settle down somewhere, we're going back up to the foothills? What was that?
I love the tight-knit communities. I love the history. I love nature. It's great to be so close to the cities such as Sacramento and to the Bay Area, yet far removed. I like to be able to drive up to the grocery store and not lock my truck if I don't feel like locking my truck.
Yeah.
I love getting on the back roads and finding the great fishing hole, and it's just kind of where my roots are. And it was important for me and my wife to have our kids experience that same experience we had as children here.
So with your kids, are you involved in a lot of activities with them?
Yeah, actually, my daughter is in a recreational league, basketball league, and I coach her team, and I also coach high school football at Argonaut High. I'm the offensive and defensive line coach.
It's a lot. To handle.
Busy, happy life.
Very cool. Very cool. So what was it about spending a long period of time in Amador and then coming over to CCWD? What was it about CCWD that was attractive to you?
One of the intrigues is the fact that, Calaveras County is approximately twice the size of Amador County. And as a result, CCWD being a special district like the Amador Water Agency, there's an opportunity to serve that entire county. And accordingly, CCWD has infrastructure all throughout the county, and it's very spread out. And to be honest with you, it's somewhat intimidating at first blush to look at, the fact that you have water and wastewater infrastructure in Arnold all the way down to Copperopolis, all the way over to the Jenny Lind, Southworth, Wallace area. And I like a good challenge, and I think one of the intrigues was how do you manage the infrastructure, the operations and maintenance of such a diverse and broad county, and a lot of different disciplines associated with CCWD.
So speaking of all that infrastructure, maybe we can just go over the district a little bit so people can picture in their mind how big it is. So how many treatment plants are we talking about for water and sewer?
So we're looking at 6 different water treatment facilities and 12 different wastewater facilities we have a distribution system that serves Dorrington, Big Trees Village, and like I said, all the way down to Copper Cove in Copperopolis, and all the way down to Southworth, which is getting really close to Lockford, in my opinion. I mean, that's pretty darn close. And so, one thing that always kind of makes me smile is when you're leaving Valley Springs, headed east on the highway, and you see the sign that says, Arnold, 45 miles. It's like, that puts it into perspective, you know. And so to have coverage, I can't say enough about the staff. The field staff have really impressed me with their depth of knowledge and their enthusiasm when it comes to doing their job and doing it well. And I think that's one of the rewards of taking this position over here at CCWD is developing a relationship with that field staff and understanding how important their jobs are to them, even though they may have to travel 45 minutes to go fix a pump up in Arnold and then just turn around and jump in their truck and go assist somebody elsewhere, which is quite a ways away.
Yeah, no doubt. So on the water side, 6 water plants you mentioned. What are the main sources where CCWD gets its water?
So up in Arnold, we have our Hunters Water Treatment Facility, which receives water from the North Fork of the Stanislaus, from the tunnel tap at McKay's Reservoir. And then that water also, the water that's not siphoned off from the water facility, will travel down into New Maloney's and ultimately into Lake Tulloch, where we pull for our for potable use out of the Copper Cove water treatment plant. And then we also have Sheep Ranch, which is a small water system which takes water from the White Pines lake in the community of White Pines, just down in the hollow by Arnold.
Yeah.
And then we have water by contract through the Bureau of Reclamation, through New Hogan, which is the dam is managed by the Army Corps, and that supplies water to our Jenny Lind water treatment plant. And then we also have Bear Creek supplies water to our West Point water treatment facility, and we can also purchase water through CPUD from the Middle Fork of the McCullamy if we need to for that facility. And then we have some wells out in Wallace.
Wow, so surface water, groundwater, and many different sources. It is a huge system, no doubt about it.
It's unique and it's diverse and it's quite complicated.
So another thing that can be challenging is 45 miles from almost the valley floor all the way up to near the crest of the Sierra. What is the topography? What kind of challenges does that pose for CCWD?
Yeah, one of the greatest eye openers for folks when they move to the foothills from the valley or from the bay, and not so much from the bay, but certain areas, is the fact that you have so many pump stations and so many wastewater lift stations in such a broad area to serve a relatively small customer base. And so that makes it quite challenging operationally overall. For instance, up in the Ebbets Pass distribution system area, which is Big Trees Village, Arnold, Avery, down through Forest Meadows, we have over 100 pressure reducing valves.
So what does that do?
So a pressure reducing valve takes water that is at a high pressure, say 150 pounds per square inch or PSI, and it'll reduce it mechanically down to say 125 or 90, and these are operator adjustable set points. Mm-hmm. And so to have 100 plus of those in a distribution system is quite remarkable. And so that illustrates how many different pressure zones are associated with the Ebbets Pass water distribution system. And you can equate pressure zones to hills and valleys. And so the same is true for the Copper Cove distribution system and for the Rancho Calaveras, Jenny Lind, La Cantena, Valley Springs area. A lot of hills and valleys, a lot of different pressure zones, some with very high pressure, where we have to work through those pressure reducing valves or PRVs to manage and monitor. All of that equipment takes maintenance, and the maintenance takes field staff.
Yeah, no doubt. So tons and tons of reduction of pressure, but also if you want to get that water up the hill, you get all those pumps. So what does that do for the cost of electricity? How does that work?
Right. So we have quite a few pump stations in each of our distribution systems, and so it can be quite expensive, mm-hmm. From an electrical perspective, and it's also challenging from a customer perspective, because you may have a booster pump station that serves 10 homes off of a cul-de-sac that's approximately half a mile long. And so that is challenging from both an O&M standpoint, maintaining that facility, making sure the pumps are operational so that adequate pressure is provided, but also from an electrical and, frankly, a ratepayer standpoint as well. And so you couple all that together, and then when you look at that from an operational perspective, you see these challenges, and it's quite an interesting distribution system or service area overall.
So how far back are we going when we get to when these were installed? Like how many years ago were a lot of these installed?
Approximately 60s, 70s.
Wow.
So, for instance, one system in particular that comes to mind, and it's not so much from a pump station perspective, but it is from a pressure reducing valve and a distribution system perspective, is the Rancho Calaveras, Jenny Lind, La Cantena service area. You have treated water mains that were installed in approximately late 60s, early 70s, with service laterals off of them made of polypropylene, and the system is in a state of disrepair in that area. And one of the factors that makes it so challenging to replace service lines is the fact that at the connection to the water main, there are no isolation valves, and generally now, if you were to construct a water main and a distribution system, you would put an isolation valve on each service lateral to a home or a property right off the main. So if there was a leak on this service lateral, you could bore down to the valve at the water main and isolate it, and that thereby a couple things are accomplished. You maintain the integrity of the system. You're not losing water, which in a drought is really popular to lose a lot of water.
Yeah.
You're also eliminating that leak, and so your ratepayers aren't seeing that. The customers aren't driving by and seeing these leaks, and then it provides you an opportunity to fix it, perhaps in a more safer setting. Perhaps it's the middle of the night when you locate this leak. Maybe you need traffic control. And so one of the challenges in the Rancho Calaveras, Jenny Lind area is we don't have isolation valves at the main. And so as a result, we're forced to allow a bunch of these distribution system leaks to continue to leak until we can get there to repair them. And we have a crew of 3 that spends most of their day repairing these service lines. And there can be as many as 50 in process at any one point in time. And for multiple reasons, they're not immediately repaired. Like I said, perhaps we need traffic control. Perhaps we need additional staff or the construction crew because we need a piece of heavy equipment because we need to remove a valve or we need to remove a ductile iron fitting. And that becomes complicated.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the key items I'm kind of zooming in on as the director of ops, And I want to take a multi-pronged approach at the Rancho Calaveras, Jenny Lind area to repair these service lines. Namely, our crew is going to continue to do the work they do. They work their butts off day in and day out to ensure that they can repair service lines. We've also opened up a weekend work program to allow field staff to sign up to go out to continue to repair leaks as they crop up on the weekends. And then our engineering department is working through the capital improvement plan to put projects out to bid that do a wholesale replacement of a street of service lines in order to reestablish those isolation valves and put in material that is new and is not in disrepair. And I think that's really how we're going to be able to bolster the distribution system in that area.
So a lot of that distribution system was installed by the original developer of those subdivisions.
Yeah.
Did they do anything differently than if you were going to install one using our construction standards?
Yes.
Okay.
So, today, if we were to install a water service line, we have a set of specifications that delineate how you're going to backfill that trench. Okay, so we say, we need a corporation valve at the water main. You're going to install this specification of service lateral, and you're going to attach it to the water meter with this type of valve, and then you're going to backfill that with base rock. And some utilities use sand 12 inches above the service lateral, and then they'll go base rock to asphalt. Well, unfortunately, when these service laterals were installed, it was you just dig the trench and then you put the lateral in the ground and then you put the dirt that you dug out of the ground back on top of it. And the challenge there is that a lot of that dirt is not dirt, it's rocks and it's shale. And so you oftentimes when we find a failure, we find a large pointed jagged rock that's sitting right on top of a plastic service line, which does not bode well for it. Case in point, we have something like this, where you have a polypropylene service lateral and a coupling to a main that just found a leak developed, and it essentially ate away all the brass and steel and polypropylene.
Wow, that's so the water pressure is actually taking that metal off. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, and so this is what we find continually out in that service area. And there are some service laterals like this in the Copper Cove area as well. So same time frame for some of those service lines and part of that subdivision.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're finding these issues. I know the people in Rancho Calaveras will often call in and say, I'm seeing leaks everywhere and our roads are being damaged and things like that. So maybe it's helpful to understand, it's a pretty big issue. So it sounds like you have a 3-point plan to start to repair and replace this area. But what kind of a timeline do you think people could expect to start seeing some real progress down there?
I mean, folks need to give us some time. I would say within the next couple of years, you're going to start to see some tangible changes, meaning less percolating water out of your streets and roads in the Rancho area. We need to get to baseline zero in terms of the in-process failures, and then we really need to push the capital program and focus on streets that have had the most failures and just wholesale replacement, like I said. And I think after a couple years of a work effort such as that, folks in the area are going to see results. And I'm happy to take phone calls from customers who want to talk about the situation. And I do. And I think it heartens people to understand that the district is moving forward, and we do recognize the issue, and we're going to resolve it.
Do you think you might go down into that area at some point and have a meeting of some kind to update the community on
Absolutely.
plans?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some other challenges in the area that I think folks need to be aware of, and I think it bears discussion as well. Namely associated with our collection system, our sewer system there. We have quite a few wastewater collection lines that are on backyard lot lines. and we have limited access to those, and so that creates challenges that I think we need to bring to light to our customers.
And a lot of these issues with old infrastructure and leaks and maybe having access, that's not just in Rancho. That's probably throughout Copper and Ebbets Pass and West Point as well.
Absolutely, and we have some unique situations in Copper and in the Big Trees Village as well. Is that we share our service lines sometimes share common trench with PG&E, and that can create some real challenges when we have a leak. Namely, you have a black polypropylene service line next to a black electrical line. That's challenging. And so actually, I've been working closely with PG&E to develop a project on their behalf so they can relocate those power lines, if you will, to ensure that, continue to ensure the safety of our field staff as we go to respond to failures in those areas.
Yeah, that sounds scary to be working with a bunch of water with a live electrical line in the same trench.
Yeah, that's a real challenge, and to add insult to injury, you can often find, a customer calls in a service lateral leak, and, we deploy staff to repair only to have to call in PG&E to kill the power so then we can safely make the repair. So not only does the customer potentially lose water supply for a period of time, they also lose power.
No doubt.
And so we need to remediate that.
So when you've been here for how many months now?
This is month 3.
Month number 3. So you're still observing and taking a lot of information in and starting to maybe draw some preliminary conclusions. But I know you're already working on, okay, here's my short-term punch list, and then maybe some longer term stuff. So, what are some of those things on the short term and then longer term that you're looking at even already?
So one of the items that shines bright like a shiny star is our work order system. So we do not have an automated or a computerized work order system. And we have basically, if a member of the field staff calls in a failure, if a customer calls in a failure, we write information on a work order and we provide that to the supervisor, and consequently the work is completed. And then that stack of paper goes into a magical box somewhere where when we need to then pull it out and analyze it, it's very difficult to find because oftentimes the magical box is nowhere to be found. As a result, one of the focuses that I had right out of the gate, and happy to realize that folks across the district you jumped on board wholeheartedly and completely agree, is that we need to develop a work order system both for customer-based issues and internal issues, preventative maintenance, corrective maintenance, where we can actually issue a work order essentially via email is kind of how the gist of these systems work. And we can send that, we can assign that to an individual, and when that individual completes it, they can put in notes, they can refer to a manual, if it's a pump or if it's a valve, they can understand how best to repair it. They can provide insight into the location of water meters on customers' property, and all of that information then flows into analytics, where staff can really look at all the fun things, charts and graphs and bars, to really understand where the deficiencies are, where the need to improve efficiency lies, to reward staff for the work efforts that they do. I mean, there are a multitude of things that CMMS can provide. So we're really excited to get involved. And that also ties into another one, which is GIS. And CCWD does deploy GIS, and we have some great staff on board that are working to bring all of our PDF or our good old-fashioned paper maps into GIS, and then we can incorporate GIS and a work order system to really, we could pull up a map and we could look at all the work orders associated with a collection line in West Point with the blink of an eye, and that's a powerful tool.
So this sounds like a huge project to tackle and a lot of people involved. What do you think would be a realistic timeline to try to get all of that decided and then implemented? Are we looking at years, multiple years, or?
We're actually looking at a fairly aggressive timeline. So we have a committee within the district that is actually reviewing presentations from different computer maintenance management system companies, with the objective of putting this on the fiscal year budget for 1920.
Wow, so that is aggressive for sure.
Yeah. And then with deployment after July.
And that would also, I guess, impact customers, because the better the district knows the system, the better customers can be notified about things like outages or boil water notices or leaks and things of that nature. Does that tie into GIS as well?
Absolutely. They both tie in together directly to the customer service software. And to take that one step further, we at the district are starting to really analyze inventory, and you can also pull inventory out of these softwares, and it really allows you to kind of zero in on the true needs of the district.
So it looks like you're looking at making things more efficient, taking advantage of new technologies, and really bringing the district into the modern age. And it sounds like that's going to be a big hill to climb, but once you get there, it's going to be better not only for staff, but also for customers.
Absolutely, that's the objective. And it's important to note that field staff are on board, the entire staff. CCWD is ready to make those steps and enthusiastic about it, and that's really heartening.
Another component of that would be getting smart meters installed, where it'd be automatic meter reading. I guess that would also provide customers with more up-to-date information on if they have a leak or how their water usage is doing. Would that also integrate into?
Absolutely, yep. Yeah, so you can incorporate automatic metering right into a CMMS program and GIS, and they all it's a nexus where they all meet. Yep.
So we just have a couple minutes left here, but been 3 months. You've observed a lot. What are your takeaways so far on the CCWD system?
Very complicated. I can't say enough great things about the staff, both within the administrative building and out in the field. Everybody is really attentive. Everybody works hard, has their heart in the right place. We need to improve some infrastructure. We have aging infrastructure. That is that's not a new thing within water and wastewater utilities in California. We're not a special case, and we have the tools in place to improve the system. And I'm excited about those opportunities, and I look forward to seeing the changes as they take place.
No doubt. And if people want to call the district, they can call 209-754-3543, and then they could ask for you if they wanted to get a hold of you.
Absolutely.
And then ccwd.org, a lot of good information on that website as well.
Yep.
And as you said earlier, you're very responsive to customer concerns. It's not an issue for the guy at the top to take a call or two.
Absolutely not. I'm happy. I'm happy to, and I enjoy going on site and really understanding the challenges that folks face.
Well, Damon, thanks for your good work so far, and I wish you the best of luck in the months and years to come.
Thanks for having me, Joel. I appreciate it very much.
And thank you for joining me on this edition of Inside View. I'm your host, Joel Metzger, and I hope you join me next time.